Hello, everyone. Sebastian, Patrick, Savannah, and Jonathan. Awesome to have you all here. Excited to talk about FastAPI Cloud. Welcome.
Yes. Sorry.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
What a project. It's been going on for a while. You know, I've heard stuff from Sebastian that maybe something was brewing and all these things, but, you know, not too long ago, you all announced it. And I heard that FastAPI, some people have been using it recently. You know, some of the surveys show that some people use it for websites. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Rumors. Yeah.
Rumors. Oh my gosh. I mean, you know, congratulations on that. But before we dive into FastAPI and FastAPI Cloud, let's just do a quick introduction. Who are you? We'll just go around the Brady Bunch squares of our live stream here and start with Sebastian. You've been on the show a few times. In fact, you've been on the show just recently for a really fun episode, Sebastian. Who are you?
Indeed, that was super fun. So, hello everyone, I'm Sebastián Ramirez, or Triángulo. I created FastAPI. That is this Python framework for building web APIs and backend, in case you didn't know.
In case you've been living in a hole and haven't done any Python for 10 years. You also are famous for really pointing out the ridiculousness of modern tech recruiting.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's fun. This is probably the thing that I am known for, is for writing a tweet saying, what was it? That I saw a job post asking for 5 years of experience with API, and I only had 2.5 since I created the thing. I was like,
So you didn't qualify for the FastAPI
I
job?
didn't qualify for it, yeah. And then the funny thing is, people sometimes, even people in Python itself, and tell me like, oh wait, and I say like, oh yeah, I created this thing called FastAPI. Ah wait, okay, so what is FastAPI? Like, oh wait, you are the guy from the meme. The meme.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like suddenly that is super important, that I am the guy for the meme about FastAPI, not the guy from FastAPI, the guy from the meme.
That's right. Oh my gosh, I saw you on TikTok. It was amazing.
It's life achievement. I wrote a viral tweet.
You know what? Sometimes your moment in the sun is not the one you expected. No. Congratulations on how good FastAPI
On the
is.
tweet.
It's amazing. Yeah, exactly. You really nailed it. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. It's nice to be here. I'm Patrick. I guess the main thing I'm kind of known for in the community is like this library called Strawberry, which is pretty similar to FastAPI, but instead of REST, it's for GraphQL. Other than that, I help organize PyCon Italy, and I used to also do EuroPython as well, but I stopped because of way too many things. That's pretty much me.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. How do you see GraphQL these days? Is it still popular?
I think it's mostly popular in the enterprises, unfortunately. To be honest, I'm a bit annoyed about the companies that do tooling around GraphQL, because I feel like they're not really pushing it forward. They're just, trying to work with enterprises, and that's it. Or maybe pivoting to AI.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like the SOAP WSDL XML modern version. Savannah.
Yeah. I was just going to say that I think you tapping out of being an organizer for EuroPython is the classic open source oversubscribed, doing all the things, very relatable, Patrick. Yeah. But yeah, I'm Savannah. What can I say? I am on the Python Steering Council for 2026, which is very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I am also the release manager for the upcoming version of Python 3.16. And so that'll kick off later this year, which is really cool and very exciting. I work on CPython stuff, the JIT, argparse, basically whatever needs help is kind of where you'll find me.
Awesome. Congratulations on the steering council. And yeah, that's a lot of cool stuff. Hopefully we don't get a Python 4.0 right after 3.16, because then your job will never end, is what I've learned.
Yeah, Benjamin Peterson, Python 2.7 forever kind of situation. Yeah. I mean, release management is still, it's still quite a commitment. It's like 7-ish years when you think about all the staggered releases, because you release management 2, and then you have the 5-year maintenance cycle. So yeah, it's Python forever is what all I can really say.
Yeah, it's probably not a fad. It's probably going to stick around, this Python thing. No, that's awesome. Congratulations. Also, cool with argparse. I feel like that's making a strong comeback now that we have these AI things that can just put stuff together for us instead of like, oh, I need to depend on this library and that library. Like, I just need to take a few arguments and have a little help text. And it's like, well, you've already got this built-in thing. Oh, and who knew? You know, people were like, "Oh, I didn't even know. I thought you'd use Typer or Click or something, right?"
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, there's the Typers and Clicks of the world, but sometimes you just want the simplest thing, and argparse is pretty great at that. Although it has many quirks that are probably and most definitely unfixable at this point, because bugs are features when you have things that have been around as long as Python. But yeah, no, AI loves to write Python. I think it's like the language used the most in AI generated code. So
yeah, it's. I'll just say we live in weird times. We live in very weird times.
I would love a precedented time at some time.
Exactly. Yeah. Can we just get the boring times? No, nothing interesting, please.
Yeah.
All right. Also, I did what I said about GraphQL may sound like a bit of a smash, but I didn't mean it in a negative. Super negative way anyway. Like, it used to be all the enterprises were all about SOAP and WSDL and like subscribing your tooling. Please don't write me. I'm not trying to bash on your technology. All right. Jonathan, also welcome. Hi.
Hi. I'm not nearly as famous as everyone else in this call. I'm more infamous internally at FastAPI Cloud, I would say, for a bunch of things.
I've heard of emojis. I've heard or something along those lines.
One meme away. You're just one meme away.
Just one meme away. Yeah, that's true. We keep piling them up internally. But yeah, I used to work with Patrick together for years, also on GraphQL, same library as him. That's how I know him, and that's why I made a weird sound when you said SOAP. Yeah, and I've been with FastAPI Cloud since EuroPython, actually, the last one. I promised Sebastian I would implement server-sent events in FastAPI, and I haven't started with it yet at all, but somehow I'm still here, so that's great.
Well, actually, and that's actually like a sneak peek, I guess. We already started like having a bunch of chats and like discussing what could we do, should we do it here, should we do it there, what should we do. So like, yeah, it's something that is coming to FastAPI probably soonish. Like, there was a lot of things that needed to happen before that. Like, Patrick is slightly smiling, like, oh no, this is pressure. There were some things that needed to happen in FastAPI, like, dropping support for Pydantic version 1 or things like that just made the internal code so complex. And now that it's over, we can actually work more on improving performance, adding features and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, very exciting. I definitely want to dive into how FastAPI Cloud has sort of influenced the whole FastAPI side of things. But I'm made aware that there's, in fact, an entire website. An entire website dedicated to the meme.
All right.
And out in the audience we get, hey everyone, is that the guy from the meme? And the meme is greater than Nobel Prize. So you know what? It may be true. It may be true.
I recognize the person saying this is the guy from the meme.
It might be my husband.
Incredible.
Hi, Judy.
Incredible. All right, well, let's start with FastAPI Cloud, and then we'll bring it back around to FastAPI. Let's talk origin story. So what is this FastAPI Cloud?
Nice. So here we're looking at the FastAPI Labs website. That doesn't really show that much. If you click on the Join the Waiting List, that takes you to the website for FastAPI Cloud. there we can see like this is what we are building. This is the thing that we are doing. It's actually super simple. The funny thing is that the pitch, the explanation of the product is so short. So it's one command. It's FastAPI deploy. And you have a FastAPI app, you just hit FastAPI deploy, and then it's on the cloud. We take care of everything. We build the thing, deploy it, handle HTTPS, auto-scaling, all the stuff. And then you can just like focus on building the application, building apps. The funny thing is that it's super short to explain, but then building it is so complex. Yeah.
I feel, well, first of all, I'm glad it's so short. So thanks for being here. That was a great show, y'all. Well, no, just kidding. No, I think it's a little bit like Jupyter notebooks in that sense that like you all are taking one for the team so that other people can have a simple experience. Whereas, you know, it's like those Jupyter folks, they write tons of TypeScript and do all sorts of things that nobody wants to necessarily do in the data science space so that you can just drag your widgets around, you know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
So
I think that is a great analogy.
Yeah, thanks. I feel
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I feel like the deployment space, it's a bit of a mixed bag, and I've been really frustrated to the point such that I wrote a book about it, that I think about an alternative that I think over the last 5+ years, it's just trended towards a little more complex.
Yes.
Oh, could we just add one of these things? And now we got these 3. We need one more thing to like make sure those things are doing, you know what I mean? And it's just like, wow, why are there 200 choices in my console to use this?
Which is like kind of funny, right? Because I feel like a lot of these companies started with this like, I don't want to understand all the ins and outs of all the infrastructure that comes with the cloud service provider. And that's really complicated to understand because I'm an app dev and I don't know anything about, you know, whatever, right? And now we're like, I don't know, kind of slowly accumulating complexity. But I think one of the cool things about what we're building, and I've worked on cloud tooling before, is like, this is like bespoke for Python developers. And I think that's like quite like unique in that like we are really trying to like bring the bleeding edge and like all the new tooling that people are using and making sure that we play well with like UV and like I think like there's a lot of thought and care put into that by the team.
Yeah, that's a super good point. I mean, I remember Azure came out with like, here's your platform as a service. You just upload your web app and we'll just take it and go. And you know, now that thing is so complicated, along with many, many others, right? It's not just them. You've got AWS, you've got Vercel. There's lots of things we could point at there's a lot of options here, you know?
And there are a lot of tools, and like, you know, like many tools and many companies are also like doing a great job at many of the things that they are doing. But in many cases, it's just so complex, it's so complicated. You know, like I have always been so adamant, I think is the word, to just teaching people how to use the tools. I think I have the most documentation about how to deploy things on your own than any other framework. I have so much information.
I hear that all the time from people. They say one of the reasons they chose FastAPI is because how clear the documentation was, you know?
Yeah, and then the thing is, you know, like just learning all those concepts and like learning all the stuff that needs to be learned just to deploy something, and then you barely have like the minimum. It's like, this is, you know, like it's just too much. It's too much complexity. I think for me, like I guess like personally, my analogy is that FastAPI Cloud is the equivalent of what FastAPI is to building web APIs and backend. You know, like you could do the same with any other framework. You could validate data, you could generate open API, you could have automatic docs, but you will probably have to do a lot of the wiring yourself and making sure that it's actually correct and that it doesn't explode, like all that stuff. That is, you know, like we are trying to do a lot of that work for the final users.
Yeah, and I think it's great. I think it's really nice to just provide this on-ramp because as you said at the opening, when I asked, you know, what the origin story is, just FastAPI deploy, right? That solves so many stories, and I'm sure behind the scenes what happens is just about as simple as that. Oh my gosh.
About that. some of us don't even get to write Python anymore to make all of this happen. So taking one for the team.
Yeah, that is taking one for a team, right? So
it is.
Yeah. Let's save the internals for a little bit later. Maybe what we could do right now, maybe we could do a bit of a walkthrough of just kind of what it's like to set up an app from scratch, right?
Nice.
I see that UV is here, which is, I've been certainly an advocate for UV in all sorts of deployment, but especially when you have like repeated build type of scenarios for like Docker Compose or Kubernetes or whatever. If the UV makes that stuff so much faster and so on. So who would like to be my guide that just kind of talks us through what it means to set up a new project here?
Patrick. Yeah. I feel like it should be Patrick.
I was going to
Patrick.
suggest Savannah, but I can. Yeah.
I've talked enough. I feel like
Patrick has the best mic.
Oh yeah, that's the reason.
That
Okay.
could be.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to go from scratch? I mean, there is like this like really nice command that Savannah built, which is FastAPI new, which I think is something like, I don't know, like super helpful. And so like
So what does
Oh,
FastAPI new do? Like, is that kind of a cookie cutter-esque experience, or what is it?
Yes, exactly. At the moment, it only scaffolds a super basic FastAPI application using UV. Also installs dependencies, creates the folder, everything that you need. In future, I think we're gonna plan support for templates, so you can build multiple like kind of things as well. But for now, it's just basically just UV FastAPI new, UVX FastAPI new, and then that scaffolds the project for you. I don't know if you want to try it live or.
Go ahead. Let's just. I would think it might disrupt too, and just let's talk us through it.
It could work. I'm just going to put that out there. Like
I'm sure.
it could work.
2 times recently. Like
I'll tell you guys I'll tell you the most insane. Like, let's do that live on the podcast experience. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is definitely the most insane. I had Matthew Rocklin on from Coiled, and those guys are all about like, hey, we're going to scale up like a bunch of available servers for you, right? So that you can do your data science. Like, I want to do some ML thing and it needs 500 servers. So during the podcast, he's, let me just spin up 2,000 EC2 instances. Hold on. And then we ran some code on it during the show. And he's like, let's try that on ARM. And then spin up another 2,000 on ARM Linux machines. I'm like, okay, that's nuts. But let's just.
That's a lot of power.
I was impressed. But Patrick, sorry, I had to derail you there. Let's talk through it.
Yeah, so you do UVX FastAPI new, then you specify the name of the application, and that's almost there. You just need one more command to deploy, which is FastAPI deploy. The first time it's going to ask you to log in or join the waiting list if you haven't been invited yet. So it's still in beta. And then you follow the steps. So like FastAPI deploy, log in, decide the team, if you have multiple teams, decide the application name, and then you wait a few seconds and the application is going to be live.
And just to be clear, FastAPI new is not required if you already have a FastAPI app. Like if you've already written your own code and you have your application, you can just go right into logging in and deploying. This is just so that if you're starting something new, you don't have to do any thinking about all the right things that need to be there. So this is more of a greenfield application. I'm bootstrapping a project.
Right. Because you want to have the best structure. Now, it uses UV, so do I have to use... Yeah, I was going to say, do I have to use like the UV project management type of thing? Do I have to use the uv.lock files and uv add uv sync? Can I do requirements.txt? What's the story there?
Yes, so we support UV with UVlock. We also support I forget the name, the pylock file, and we also support plain requirements.txt. And maybe something else. I don't know. Jonathan, can you?
Pylock's pretty new, right? I think Brett Cannon just got that out pretty recently, right?
Yeah.
Brett was pretty excited.
Also,
I know.
He implemented that.
Oh, was he? Okay, I'm sure he was. That's awesome. He put years of work into that.
Sure did.
Yeah. And he also said that one of the motivations was also like, like cloud providers. So it's like, yes, we did it.
Okay.
The other thing is like, if you use other different package managers, if they use the standard PyProject.toml format, that will also be supported. That means that, like if you use PDM or if you use Poetry with one of the recent versions, like that will work. If you use a very old version of Poetry or like you use some other strange package manager or something, that will probably be problematic. But for like most of the use cases that use the standard package formats, it will just work. And if you use UV, then like you're gonna have the best experience because we are fans of UV and Astra.
Yeah. They've definitely put a dent in the way that sort of Python gets started and making that a lot easier. So it totally makes sense to do. And also, I noticed, speaking of UV, that there's, at least in the recommended way, or the way in the docs, let's say, it doesn't say, here's how you install FastAPI. Here's how you run FastAPI-new, leveraging UV, which then will, silently install and manage. Right, that's pretty neat. That helps you guys tell a simpler story, right? Here's how you create the virtual environment to install our thing, and so on.
Exactly. Yeah, the idea is to make it like, as Savannah was saying, just super simple for people just to start from scratch. Like no idea how to create an app, how to start, how to create an environment. It's just you run this command and you're off to go. Off to the races. I'm mixing sayings. Anyway, that's what Colombians do. But then if you already have an app, if you have like anything with FastAPI standard installed, then like that also just works.
Yeah. Okay. And Savannah, you pointed out that it doesn't have to be a new project. If you want to start from an existing one, that's totally fine. But what do I got to do if I'm migrating an existing one? Like, how easy or hard is this?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I have some like legacy project demo apps I've built at other companies I've worked with that have used FastAPI, and I literally just ran like FastAPI login and then FastAPI deploy, and it just worked, which felt really magical, right? Like, I think that's like, I don't know, like having worked on cloud products for quite a while, like I think one of the biggest gaps is like the disparity between like my local dev environment and what is actually like lives up in the cloud somewhere. And so being able to just run one command and having the project as it exists on my machine go and work somewhere without having to think about like the infrastructure. And of course, like, we want to be like amenable to folks who do want a little bit, like higher touch, but we also want to work for people who are like learning FastAPI and Python, right? Like educators and people that are teaching Python. I think this is like something that we've had some interest in as well from those folks. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was just listening to the Teaching Python podcast folks just the other day and thinking, like this, when I look at this, I know this is not necessarily your focus, but certainly people who are trying to teach a class, be it a college class or a high school class or whatever, and if you build anything on the web, the next question is, this is cool, how do I share it with people? And then like, no, hold on. Are you from...
Like in like coding boot camps, right? Like if you're teaching someone how to write Python or how to write build an API with FastAPI, like actually setting up the environment for them to deploy is not part of it, right? Like that's not actually part of the curriculum. It's like this peripheral thing that ends up eating up a bunch of the educators' time or the students' time trying to understand both like how to write code and then also understand cloud stuff. And that's like a lot to ask people when they're fresh out the gate.
Yeah, I feel the same way about like tutorials and stuff at conferences.
Totally.
or training sessions if you're doing like corporate training, or like they're all like, oh, well, let's get everybody's machine working. There goes an hour, and whatever. But if you can just say, look, I think when you're trying to learn something, be it through school or on your own or through these like more structured ways like boot camps and training and so on. I think if it's not the main purpose, I feel so often there's like, we're going to do 20 steps for 4 hours before you get any sort of reward
Totally.
of what you've done.
Yeah.
And if you can go, okay, do you have it running? Okay, now you run this command. Look, now it's on the internet. Like, oh, wait, awesome. I got an app on the internet. Everybody look at me. You know what I mean? And I think shortening that cycle to where people can have that aha moment. And then later they can dive into like, well, how is it really working? And what do we really need to understand? But that quick iteration cycle, especially in the early parts of learning new tech, is really important.
But also, like down the line as well, I think, like, I don't know, there are so many things that I have been wanting to build, and I didn't because it was just so complex to deploy stuff. Like knowing how to do the whole thing, how to set up the clusters, the machines, install the Linux systems, deploy the cluster, whatever, like all that stuff, deploy the things, handling load balancers and HTTPS, and like, I know how to do that. I built one of the most popular websites teaching how to use Docker Swarm, which was like the contender before Kubernetes won everything. And like, but still, it's just so complicated, like doing all those steps. And like, no, I'll just not do it. Like some other day. Now I can just like play around and do random stuff and just like deploy, and it just works. I really like that.
I guess like coming back to that, like taking one for the team point earlier, like I feel like building Python tooling is kind of like taking one for the team sometimes, because you have these folks that are like, brand new to Python. Like Python is an extremely approachable language for people who are new to writing code. But then, we also want to make FastAPI Cloud work for someone that's building like an enterprise grade application, right? And so like, it's like a pretty wide spectrum of folks with like a million different use cases and different types of applications they want to deploy with different constraints and like security stuff. And like, so I think, I don't know, maybe that's just like Python tooling. It's a lot of work, I guess, to like build something that works for the masses.
Yeah, well, it's certainly tough to make something that feels simple, but it's not overly simplistic, that can actually solve the problems.
Has the right knobs for the right users too, right?
I would argue we're not only trying to do it simple and easy. I feel like we're choosing like a particular flavor of simple, which is like, we had this discussion a few times. It's like, if you make a cloud, how do we make it feel Pythonic? Like, what does that mean in a cloud setting? Like, we talk about Pythonic libraries, Pythonic coding style in the community a lot. And now we kind of try to transfer that, like that flavor, that feeling to the cloud and make everything around that feel just like we want our libraries to feel. So you feel at home as a Python developer and it just feels right. So that's an extra step on top of making it simple. And we discuss that a lot. At least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I love it.
I think it's one of the... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that I think it's one of the coolest things about this theme. People are being able to hear a few of us. There are like a bunch of others, but like that each one of us is so passionate about the things that we are working on. So like each one of us is trying to make the best out of the things that we are building. And then like we are so passionate about the thing that we care about and that we are building, that I think that ends up in an amazing result. For example, the CLI. We wanted to have some specific, behaviors, some look and feel, and like we wanted to be able to have like the best kind of the CLIs. So Patrick went ahead and built this very bunch of tooling that we needed to be able to have it, and like made it open source and everything, so we could have this great experience when working with CLIs. Jonathan recently was doing so much stuff about the handling the caches and handling security, making sure that everything was super secure, super fast, super snappy. Alejandra is super careful about all the UI. Martin is super careful about all the infra. And, it's like this passionateness, which is a word I just made up, this. Alejandra goes and says, like, this thing doesn't have the proper margins. We need to increase this a little bit. And like, I don't like it. And she just goes and fixes it. The same with Martin. He says, like, we need to have like this other thing in infrastructure. And it's like, just comes and tells me, "Hey, we are doing this." I'm like, "Yes, sir." It's like this with the rest of the team. Like Yuri, for example, that is mainly focused on the open source, is constantly looking at all the discussions, PRs, conversations, making sure that everything that we do. That's also why there have been recently way more releases of FastAPI and friends of the open source projects, and very fast book fixes, very fast responses to handle everything for the community. Now we actually have people that is paying attention constantly to what is happening, what are the things that we have to do, and that really care about that part as well. So I think this extreme care about what we are doing. Like Savannah is making Python, and a lot of people like Python itself. I think this detail that each one of us cares so much about each one of the things that we build, that helps a lot, making sure that the product is actually amazing. It's as good as it can be, and we can all feel at home when using it. I don't know. I get so excited, because I really enjoy the end result of the product and being able to use it, and how it looks in the end, how it feels to work with it. It's super good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Here, let me adjust your mic real quick. I think it was like ducking out a little bit.
We just went through a lot of content and a lot of sweating because your microphone went through 6 different stages of weirdness.
Yeah, I think. So I think that really leads to something I wanted to talk about is just what impact has this had on FastAPI? And before you jump in and answer that question, everyone, there's, especially I think with Astral, but because they've had so much success, there's been an undercurrent of concern of oh my gosh, commercialism is getting into our open source, and what if it pollutes it and causes these negative aspects? But just hearing all of the energy around FastAPI with so many people because of FastAPI Cloud, I think that's super neat. So I wanted to throw out to you all, how has this building FastAPI Cloud and the existence of FastAPI Cloud been giving back to FastAPI, I guess?
I will let you speak first.
To say, but yeah.
I'm always the one that's speaking the most.
No,
I mean, it might be your project. You might have started the project.
Yeah, maybe so.
No, but it's last year I had a few keynotes in some PyCons in different places, and one of the key points that I wanted to bring was this idea that I'm trying to show that in many cases people worry about the boss factor, and the boss factor.
Yes, I've heard this. Yes.
Yeah, the boss factor is the idea that what happens if there's one person doing this work? What happens if a boss runs over this person? And there's so much worry about this boss factor.
It's sort of a morbid analogy, but I understand, right? It's what will happen to the open source project if the maintainer vanishes for some reason, right?
Exactly. But it also applies to products and to many other different things. But what I think is that is a disproportionate amount of attention to this detail of the boss factor. And I think every time people talk about the boss factor, one of my points in what I was trying to say in these talks was I would like people to think about the boss ticket factor. Who is paying for those tickets? It doesn't matter how big is the team. You have seen Google, Amazon, Meta, all the big ones. They don't have a small boss factor. They have a lot of people in their payroll, and still they finish products. They just cancel them. Open source or private or whatever is not that the main factor defining the success of a project, being it commercial or open source of any type. Is not really how many people are behind it. It's more of what is the value that whoever is putting the effort to keep it alive is getting from putting all that effort. It could be just satisfaction. It could be like open source, I feel so good that I'm contributing to society, and that is valid. Doesn't pay the rent, but it's still valid. Might last for a while. But then also like, like when you see like there are so many Python projects, so many open source projects that can do well or can do bad, and it doesn't really depend on how many people they have. And when you are using a project, when you are using an open source project, or when you are using a product of any type, I will encourage you to think about what is the boss ticket factor of this project. What are the things that whoever is building this is receiving in exchange for giving it away? So like, what are they expecting to sell you at some point? Or what are they receiving in exchange? For example, Bun, the JavaScript runtime library. Like it was like, we don't know what they're going to sell, but now Cloud and Anthropic really want to have like this thing keep working because they are using it internally. So you can say like, okay, I'm gonna use it for free. I know that what they receive for me using it is just like that they just really want it. So I can just like, whenever you are using Bond, you are getting free services from Anthropic. That's it. But like every time you are using a project, you can think about what are people receiving in exchange for giving this away for me. I think this is. Sorry, go ahead, Savannah.
No. You finish.
No. That I think this is like the thing that I would like people to think about. Like also like how can they give back? Maybe they can also actually contribute to that community or to that project. There are many ways, and in many cases, the thing that is needed the most is just like help and work, just answering questions and issues. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, like, kind of related to what you're saying, I think one of the angles that I really appreciate about the way we think about FastAPI and FastAPI Cloud is like, we're like, a lot of our team was involved in open source before coming to work at FastAPI Cloud on various projects around the Python ecosystem, outside of Python. And I think like all of us have a deep appreciation and understanding of the value of open source and really, really try and build in a way that is like, I mean, Sebastian, you've talked about this a lot, but like solving a real problem for folks, right? And so like FastAPI Cloud is sort of this like extension of this open source ecosystem people would be using. FastAPI Cloud may be an option. Maybe someone picks some other cloud for some reason. I think we're all very mindful of that. But like the angle that's very cool, I think, is that like, because we all work at FastAPI Cloud, like I know that I personally have more time for my open source work, and my employer understands the value of my open source work, which is net positive for the open source community. Like I get to work on CPython sometimes, and I have, the bandwidth to go and do my steering council work or upcoming release management work. So I think like, I understand like this sort of like, I don't know, like tempering, like open source, commercial, bad, all bad. It's not all bad. It's actually like really good in a lot of cases for
look at UV for an example to hold up, right?
Yeah, Astral. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think there are some really good examples of this. So I think like that's another angle that, I mean, I get a lot of energy out of our team because I don't have to fight the open source battle at FastAPI Cloud.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
I do think that's super cool as well. Let me put out two examples for you here that I think everyone will be aware of. As sort of to add to what Sebastian was saying is, look how much Apple freaked out when Steve Jobs died, and how many people work at Apple, right? Like that was still like, oh my gosh. But I think they're hanging in there. They're going to be probably making it. And then
they are not in our pity.
I tell you what, they got some of my money. That's for sure. But also, look at Flask, right? Armin Ronacher worked on it for a long time, drifted away, which is totally fine. And David Lord and Pallets picked it up and kept running, right? Like it's still one of the most popular frameworks out there, right? So
yeah,
it's. I think the bus factor is overblown a bit, but also looking at the team of folks here, I think it's even more obvious that there's a bunch of people who are on the inside.
But like for example, Flask. Like I learned so many things from Flask, and like the thing is, I feel like sometimes people go and complain about the tool and say like, oh, this is not working for this or for that, and in many cases, it's in this insensitive way towards the people that are working on that. And it's like, like in the end, realize that there's actually people behind the scenes doing the work. And like in many cases, it's just like one or two people doing a lot of work. In many cases, just for free. And like I think it's worth calling that out. Like all the work that David Lord does for Flask is just like so much work. And yeah, I think deserves a lot of respect.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree.
Sorry, the other thing that I forgot to mention is that there were so many ideas of potential products that I could build over the years, and I never did, and I never started a company because I didn't have clarity of what will be like a good thing to actually sell and will have like a good alignment. The cloud product has such a good alignment with the open source side because as more successful FastAPI is, the more successful FastAPI Cloud has a potential to be. The more people using Python effectively, the more people might end up checking out FastAPI, and the more people might end up checking out the product. So if FastAPI does well, if the open source does well, if Python does well, that's better for the company. So it doesn't really depend on my personal principles and values or something like that. It's aligned with, it's financially aligned with the company. So it's just gonna be beneficial in the end because it doesn't depend on good intentions. And FastAPI is open source. It has like 7,000 forks or something. So if a boost runs over me, there are 7,000 forks. It's not going away. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I think. I feel like I should maybe give a little bit of tell a little bit of the story of what's going on with, where did I put it? I don't think I pasted it over here. Is what's going on with Tailwind right now. And I think Tailwind is having a tough time, Tailwind CSS. Traffic to Tailwind is up 6 times year over year on NPM downloads. But the revenue of Tailwind is down 5 times. These are completely out of whack things because instead of people going to docs to learn about it, it's just like, well, when you go to the docs, you learn they also have premium offerings, right? And I think you guys are different because it's not just, oh, here's a little bit nicer of a thing, right? I feel like it would be a little bit as if you were selling cookie cutter templates for FastAPI apps. And it's like, well, the AI can make the shape of the thing that comes out of the cookie cutter, to be honest. You know what I mean? But you're offering something that has ongoing value that it costs more and is more complex in other places. And so I think maybe just thinking about how this just keeps the team going for FastAPI is really awesome. And I think it's got a nice flywheel effect there. I'll link to this, I guess, audio track. I don't know what I call it. Like blog post that has 1 sentence, but a 30-minute audio you can check out from the guy, Adam, who's one of the founders of Tailwind, talking about going into this. It's kind of rough. I think I don't necessarily want to go into a deep AI, what it means for the industry. Like, let's stay focused what you guys are doing. But I think it's going to be
episode.
I think it's going to be its own series. I mean, Stack Overflow had as many questions asked this month as they did in the first month of their existence, right? 3,000 or 4,000, whereas at their peak they were 200,000 questions a month. There's like real turmoil that's coming from some of these things, which is tricky. But yeah, I'm really excited to see you all doing this because I'm a big fan of FastAPI, and I think this is just sustaining and more for FastAPI, right? Like, what do y'all think?
Yeah,
I'm thinking about
that's what we hope.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I thought about Tailwind for a second, right? It's not like we're immune to what happened to them. Like, we also have a lot of documentation online. AI could train on that, and if it's good enough, it could maintain your infrastructure and stuff. It's just too hard at the moment, and there's an additional thing we're kind of selling, which is like, I guess, responsibility. Like, and you're shifting the risk from like letting your AI or your infantry team maintain your infrastructure to us. So we're staying up at night and worry about it. That has a lot of value as well, and that's probably not going to get removed.
Yeah, and I also think here's a very common Claude Code, Cursor, whatever conversation. Hey, build me something with Python and needs an API. Okay, we built it with FastAPI. How do I host it? Right? That doesn't just, it will build a cloud for you, right? It's going to recommend something out there. And a real natural way to how do I host FastAPI is FastAPI Cloud, right? Like if it suggests, oh, you're just going to like spread it across Lambda by breaking, like, whoa, no, I want something simple. Like, okay, give me FastAPI Cloud, right? I think that that's a really good thing. And then on the enterprise side, you know, enterprise folks are notoriously not good at supporting open source in that they're not like paying for it. I know some companies are big supporters of the PSF and Python and open source. But in general, it's like, yeah, we have this project with 5,000 people working on it. It's all Python. And are we sponsoring this? No, we're just enjoying the money, right? And we're a bank. So we got the money. We got all the money. So they're just not good at paying for like a really great framework that they use a lot. But they got plenty of hosting, plenty of internal apps that they just need to make run and stuff. So I think both on like the low end and the high end, there's a lot of synergy between these things. That is not just, you know, slightly advanced, not to diminish it, but slightly advanced UI widgets that you could ask your AI to build or something, or like cookie cutter templates for project starters.
Yeah. That's true. Like, I think we are in a somewhat fortunate position of like, you know, like FastAPI has grown so much in like, you know, like when you check the statistics about downloads or GitHub stars or entries in developer surveys, like it's at the top in like in each category. It's like, you know, like the backend framework with the most GitHub stars across languages, even like, you know, like Java, Go, Ruby, JS, like whatever. It's like the top one, at least in GitHub stars. So like, you know, like FastAPI at least is like people are liking it, fortunately. And there's probably gonna be people deploying things to FastAPI Cloud. So that's probably gonna be like, we are probably gonna be fine. I think I guess it will be like a good point to ask people to go and check what are the open source projects that they are using and check what is the boss ticket factor for those open source projects. You know, like if you are using Tailwind CSS, it would have been very cool if at some point you check if the premium things were useful for you and for your company or your project or something like that, you know? Because what is the thing that keeps that project going?
Right, exactly. And I really personally admire if a project or something offers like more value, not just, hey, buy me a coffee, but here's a thing that you get way more of, you know. And in that regard, I think Tailwind was doing that, right? They were offering this suite of pre-built things, and I think that's great. But yeah, I do think you got more of these crazy AI things are going to maybe recommend FastAPI Cloud more than they're just going to undercut it. So I think that's really great. And by the way, I was just looking for the GitHub stars graph. Like there's a whole, I can't remember what the domain of that site is, but and I ran across, by the way, I just want to give a quick shout out. Like your cult repo documentary on FastAPI was awesome.
Right, that was so fun.
I didn't see that coming. Yeah, it came right on the heels of the Python official documentary, the 1 hour one. This is the same group, and the production quality was really nice. So like,
it was super fun. Like when they released the trailer for the Python documentary, before releasing the documentary, when they released the trailer, they contacted me and said like, hey, like we're doing these mini documentaries about like different frameworks, different tools, and like we want to include FastAPI there. And I was like, nice. But then, like I was just like trying to stay silent, but super excited.
I'm sure. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I watched it as soon as it came out. So I'll link to that. People should definitely. It's only like 10 minutes or something, but it's worth it. Yeah. Worth checking out. So it's not a huge investment in time. People can watch it, I suppose. It's not TikTok. I mean, it's not like Oh, I saw the documentary, but
But then
it doesn't take you a huge amount of. Yeah, people
You have to
could.
listen for 10 minutes.
It is
and
such a
overly
weird
excited
time.
Colombian.
You guys, I don't understand what's happened to the attention span of society. I'm really honestly a little concerned. I used to, when I would create my courses, people would say, like a 4-hour course, and there'd be like a 10, 15 minute sort of, hey, here's all how you set up your computer, and here's all the introduction. And people, oh, that's so awesome. I loved how you kind of set the stage. I'm really motivated to take the course. Nowadays, I just get messages like, why are you still talking? This is 5 minutes long. Do you understand? I'm like, this is your job. You can't spend 5 minutes? Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's sort of the origin of my comment there. It's all right. So we're kind of getting somewhat short on time. So I think I want to talk about a couple of things. Let's talk a little bit about internals. Like what, I don't know who wants to take this one, but let's talk about just how, when I say FastAPI deploy, then what?
Good.
It's just it's just a UV pip install, and it just goes, and it's magic, and it's easy, right?
We have a
Yeah.
nickname for Jonathan. Can we say it or no?
Yeah. I was
think
gonna say,
that's the-
Chronathan, you should take this one.
Oh my god, it's so funny. This happened because I told my friends I'm so concerned about being at the podcast because like everyone here is like a visionary, and then I'm like the backend guy. And I think the things I could contribute to this conversation, I should probably keep to myself. But it's just leaking internals, right? There are some things that are like not really a secret. Like as Sebastian said earlier, like Kubernetes 1 and in the infrastructure and deployment field to some extent. So that's somewhere in there, right? But it's all the way deep down, so no one has to worry about it. But it's still a foundation, which is a good foundation. I think one thing that's you might have guessed it, but FastAPI Cloud is built on FastAPI, which kind of makes sense, right? And that also has an effect on like recent patches, updates, and stuff. Because if we find something internally which we're not happy with, then we just fix it, and that's how some releases came out faster than months before.
Power of dog fooding.
Yeah, that's
we're
awesome.
dogfooding a lot.
Yeah.
Also, all the related libraries like SQL model and others, they experience the same thing.
We're actually using everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
There-
okay,
there-
that's cool.
New libraries coming out. Patrick,
That's
you
also a
know,
thing.
conference.
Yeah, it's not just FastAPI and friends. It's we're like really open. Like recently, Patrick just open sourced everything we use for our authentication, authorization, for example. Is it open source yet? Did they just leak something?
No, it is. Yeah, but no. There's not.
Okay.
No.
It will be
Not
announced.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter,
So-
but yeah, we build stuff internally in the moment we realize, like we build it in a way, like in a separate package, just like an open source library. And if we feel like the time is right, it's just getting open sourced because a lot of things are reusable. And that's in all departments. Like that happens a lot. Like when I started there, I already realized that like everyone was building open source, but now I joined in myself as well. I open sourced the library for like compression, like compressing and decompressing archives in Python because the
Nice.
internal tar file thingy is just slow, and we needed it to be faster because we're staring at the deployment process and we're like, hey, we could probably shave off a few seconds here. And then that's
cool.
just open source for everyone to use. So we're contributing to the whole Python ecosystem
The
as well.
name, you have to say the name. It's so good.
Is it good? No, it's faster because it's faster than just tar.
Fast tar. I love it.
Faster.
That's
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
And you can say with that very, very German accent.
with the I could have, but you did it better. Yeah.
I'm practicing.
I'm scared of leaking stuff from our deployments. That's why I didn't say much
Is
about
das the Fasta, or is this different?
No,
it. It's literally the same name, but it's so fresh that I guess Google showed you this one instead.
Yeah. Let's see.
Dr. John Fastar.
Yeah. that's
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's also like, like we.
Oh, Doctor, full name, full
Okay.
spelling. Yeah. There you go. One word.
Wow, that's a lot of zeros.
Yeah, you need to like SEOify this package, man.
I'm searching. I know. I'm searching on GitHub.
Why is the pull request now? Am I that hard to find?
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that's
Hold
awesome.
on. Hold on.
It's in the
I
chat.
see.
Yes, there we go.
Okay.
There it
That's
The detective is at work. Here we go. Faster.
Yeah, it's already there.
Well, oh man, I'm not logged in on this machine. This is just my streaming, not my dev machine. I'll go star it. We'll get you some. We'll get you some stars.
that's,
gonna
that's the irony about it. Like it literally has no stars, but if you scroll down, you see the downloads. That's kind of proof. We're actually using it.
Yeah, awesome. Super cool.
So,
Okay, this is pretty neat, and it works. Yeah, I like it. It's a little context manager, and
It's
I love
almost
it.
working the same as the TAL file standard in the standard library, like the same, like almost similar API to that. It's basically a drop-in replacement, more or less.
cool.
but then underneath,
All right.
everything happens in Rust because Rust.
Because
I
it's fast, yeah.
Because Rust, yeah.
Well, as soon as it becomes infrastructure, and you've got to run it a million times, that starts to make sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Python is one of the fastest programming languages in the world when you think about human time to build the things, right? Like that's one of its real superpowers is like, I mean, there's the whole story of Google Video and YouTube, right? And Google Video was written in C++ with 100 engineers, and
Oh, I
YouTube was a
forgot
small
about
team
Google Video.
in Python, and they just couldn't keep up with the features. So they bought this little old thing, YouTube, and see if we're going to make something with it. And last I checked, it was still in Python. I'm sure some of it isn't, but a few years ago it was, which is wild. Anyway,
Yeah.
there's different ways of fast, but when it's down to like little utilities, yeah.
I know some
Or-
people that are trying to make Python fast. I know a couple.
Yeah, and honestly, massive success in the last 5 years, right?
Yeah. The like since 3.11, since the specializing adaptive interpreter, there's been pretty big improvements.
Yeah, 3.9 and 3.11 did a lot of like foundational work, and then 3.9 onward really just uncorked a lot of innovation there.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. All right. It sounds like, Sebastian, you've talked a lot about Kubernetes. So I imagine Kubernetes is happening. Do we get to pick what data centers it runs on? Do we get to pick what clouds it runs
You're-
on? Like,
You're going to get to pick some of these things. Not yet. It's not released yet. But like it's so of course, like we have like regular cloud providers underneath, and there's a bunch of Kubernetes. Then there's a bunch of additional stuff that needs to run on top. Then there's like custom Kubernetes controllers and things that Jonathan was saying that he's having to write in Go so that people in Python can be happy to be able to like manage all the Kubernetes shenanigans that need to happen because there's so much complexity that needs to be handled. There's a lot of that. We do a lot of advanced tricks also. Jonathan was recently doing a bunch of advanced tricks to handle the caches for the builds. So the way that we handle caches, and we also like tap into UV and how things work so that builds can be super, super fast because it's like something, we are very much targeted at FastAPI and Python in general. So we can take advantage of knowing how things run internally, how things are installed, how to optimize everything so everything is just like super fast to install,
Yeah.
to run.
I imagine you all have base Docker images that are like just one layer away from whoever's code is running. Like you've got it all optimized, already pre-built with FastAPI and whatever settings of Python you want.
Yeah, like a bunch of things and tricks. Yeah, and but also like different things, like the different ways that we do to actually build the things and install things and put them inside of the actual, like build application. There's like a lot of sourcing that we do there, and like Jonathan has been like working on a lot of that. And there's also all the logic and all the stuff. We have a bunch of stuff on top of that to handle auto scaling, which is something that is actually not that easy to find in different providers. We have auto scaling based on requests, including scaling down to 0, which saves costs. But it's this is not lambdas. It's not AWS lambdas. It's like the full deployed application, the full container or whatever it is. which is, like the full thing with all the dependencies is running for whenever it has to run, but we can scale based on requests. So it's like, I guess it's like the type of thing that you will have if you had this giant cluster for a, like huge enterprise with a bunch of infra people making sure everything just works perfectly, but you just pay us to do that for you. And then
Yeah.
But I think this is also a good time for us to probably say lots of stuff is coming and we're in private beta. And so you should sign up for the wait list and so that you can get admitted and try out these very cool things we've been talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'll let Tech Insider out in the audience sort of lead
Public
into
release when? Sebastian, when?
lead us into my final topic, which is just what's the roadmap? When is this stuff, like, how do we get into it here?
So right now we have
start. Nothing.
we have the right now we have the waiting list, and we are onboarding people. We already have like a bunch of people in the private beta. We're gonna keep onboarding people from the waiting list and ramp that up, but it will be like through the waiting list is the main place where we are onboarding people. We want to make sure that everything is super fine-tuned, and we're going to keep it that way for a while. So like people that are on the waiting list are going to be like the ones that are going to be able to start using it the soonest. At some point we'll probably have ways for people to invite others and things like that. About the things that we are building, we want to, we are super focused on FastAPI and then Python in general. At some point we'll probably support different tools, different ways to run, also like Python code in general, probably different frameworks. It will also depend a lot on what the users are asking for. What are like the tools, the frameworks, the use cases, the things that they need to build, and like we're gonna evolve the platform and the system based on what people need out of it.
Yeah, and we have like a GitHub repo where we have issues, but we also have like a Slack that once people are admitted, they can talk directly to us, and that feedback's really, really valuable for shaping the roadmap and figuring out all the fun things you want us to support.
Yeah, awesome. Of course, you're going to charge money for it. It runs on servers, and you guys are not a charity. But I don't know. Can you give any sense of what you're thinking about that kind of stuff, or join the wait list and see?
First join the waiting list and see, but we don't have like that predefined yet, but it will be on the ballpark of what you could get from like different cloud providers. So like, like different similar-ish providers will be on the ballpark of like what you will get. But it's not, it's not like written in stone yet. It's still a little bit different because we can auto-scale based on requests. So we can, we can increase the amount of replicas of your application automatically, and then we can decrease them automatically, and we can scale down to 0. So you can probably handle all the load that you need, and in the end, spend a lot less because you don't have to have a bunch of instances constantly running or things like that, So it will probably work a little bit different than what it will be for other providers, but in the end, it should be roughly similar.
Okay. And given the fact that you all handle so much of it as a platform as a service type of thing, you don't have to have a cloud expert on hand or a DevOps expert necessarily, right? That's as soon as a company has to hire somebody to be an AWS cloud architect or something like that, it's no longer just what is your AWS bill, right?
Yeah, and it's also a lot of the pain that we are swallowing, so you don't have to deal with it.
Exactly, it's part of taking one for the team, right?
Yes.
Indeed. All right, so I had one or two things specifically that I was thinking is like custom domains. How far off are custom domains? Like I was like, I could put some cool things on there. I could tell Jonathan is psyched about this. I was like, it'd be really fun to put like one of my really small FastAPI projects over there something I set up for some of my courses or something, and then I can like point people to go, look, it's running on FastAPI Cloud. How neat! You guys can check that out over there. And I'm like, but it's on its own domain, and that domain is baked into the course videos. You know what I mean? And it's written in stone.
It's marketing.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I can't really move it because it has, some subdomain of TalkPython, right? Jonathan.
I was gonna say that word.
See, I was working on it, and then I got a notification by Google Calendars that I should join a certain podcast. So,
are you telling me we don't have custom domains? Because I'm here asking you about custom domains. How meta is that?
You got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be here already, but no, you have to wait a bit more.
Okay, but soon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soon is broad enough, but I'm actively working on it. Let's put it like that.
Awesome. Okay, that sounds great. And then, it's never simple. I set up some stuff and it's like, you get the pop-up. Oh, you got to put this, this TXT record or this CNAME or whatever record into your DNS, and then we're checking it. Oh, it might take 3 days for your DNS to propagate. So hang in there, and I can imagine like you're having fun.
Yes. You bring it. That's like, wow. I thought I'm almost off work, but no, you're bringing it all back. But yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sure the company could support therapy to like work through the issues and the trauma that you've suffered from the DNS.
Yeah.
It's always DNS. That's right. I mean,
It's always DNS.
Yes, it's always DNS. Yes.
I guess one of our goals with the custom domains is also to make it super simple for you to set up them. Like, for example, if you're using one of the providers that support like OAuth, we can also like just do one click and then it's going to be automatically.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's really nice.
But that unfortunately depends on the platform you're using, because not all of them support this.
Yeah, just a shout out for people
by
out.
The person in charge of most of the integrations. So Patrick has built. We have integrations for a bunch of database providers and things like that. And I think Patrick knows by memory the OpenID specification. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that other thing I wanted to talk a bit about was just integrations, like what kind of stuff you guys have coming. I saw that Hugging Face is going to be integrated soon. You've got Supabase, which is kind of Postgres as a service. There's a lot of those things out there that theoretically could be added.
Yeah, I mean, someone also asked for MongoDB. Maybe that's one that we're gonna take a look into. It really depends on the provider. So, like at the moment, we don't want to host databases for you because that's also another kind of rabbit hole. Jonathan is probably not ready for that. But yeah, like definitely like databases. But I guess we can say that we also talking with the people from Pydantic, so we can integrate maybe Logfire automatically, that kind of stuff. Yeah, and also like things
that'd be cool.
Like Redis, which is also another kind of database. That's also coming soon.
Yeah, there's a couple of database as a service type things that don't require too much other than just connecting API keys and something like that, right? Those seem like low hanging fruit.
Yeah, so like the kind of goal with the integration is not just that. Like right now it's just setting up an environment variable. But the idea is also to do like more, I don't know, like a proper integration, I would say. Like for example, for things like Supabase, I think they support branching. Like, for example, once we support pull request previews for GitHub, like we can also create a branch automatically for you if you have the Supabase integration enabled. And we can do this kind of stuff as well. Or even we could show like some information about database, I don't know, like load or like memory usage, things like directly from our dashboard, so you don't have to go there. That's
right.
The main reason why we're building this infrastructure for the integration.
All right. Well, people can sign up to the waiting list and hopefully get on the private beta. And
we actually check the waiting list. We actually check the use cases, team sizes, like what are people building with it. Like we actually go and check it, and we bringing people from the waiting list. So
nice. I didn't join the waiting list directly. I was added by some guy I know who was very kind to help me get some behind the scene look. So I don't know what the
VIP
process is.
integrations.
Do you actually say what you want to do with it, and you like evaluate that a little bit as well, based on like, hey, this would be a cool use case for us to support?
Yes, of course. Because there are many types of applications and many types of different team sizes, many types of things that people might want to build, and we try to see like, okay, where is a case where we could be like a good fit and we can provide a great service, and what are the things that people are trying to build. Also, it helps us see like what are people trying to do with FastAPI Cloud, so that we know what we have to provide. But we actually go and check. Those, those submissions, and like it's actually thousands of people in the waiting list, but we still go and check and approve kind of manually still to bring a bunch of people on board in the different ways that we have been bringing people. So if people go and join the waiting list and actually tell us what they are, what is their use case, their team, like what are they planning on doing, there's a much higher chance that we are gonna go and just like bring them on.
Okay, awesome. So everyone, go join the wait list if you're doing FastAPI. I'll link to it in the show notes, of course. Thank you all for being here and sharing the story. And I for one, am very excited to see FastAPI Cloud exist, and just one more way to make FastAPI stronger and more resilient, and so on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank you.
having us.
Fun.
Yeah, you bet. Bye, everyone.
Bye, folks.
Bye.